Welcome to the Show Me the Way podcast. I am your host, Andrea Miller, and I'm so excited to bring this show to you. Show Me the Way is a podcast dedicated to exploring the journeys of those who have faced adversity and found themselves on unexpected paths. We will have meaningful, thoughtful conversations about challenges we have faced and how we discovered and forged new direction. Prepare to be inspired and to uncover your own strength as you listen to relatable and motivating stories. Life has a way of twisting and turning, and we often need a fresh perspective to understand how to navigate. Let's show each other the way. Today's episode, I have the absolute honor of sitting down with my little sister, Toni Thorne. She's been on my list for quite some time, not only because she's one of my biggest supporters, but because I knew she had powerful stories and perspectives to share. Toni opens up about her journey through 3 marriages and divorces, reflecting on the patterns she's recognized and how therapy, faith, and a deep desire to grow have helped her take accountability and move forward. We talk about what it truly means to have a partner in life and how essential it is to lean on a supportive community of family and friends when things get tough. Toni also shares candidly about the challenges of shared parenting, her ongoing efforts to improve, and her hopes for a brighter, more peaceful future. Her vulnerability and self-awareness are inspiring reminders that freedom and healing come when we own our mistakes and step off the hamster wheel of repeating old patterns. This conversation is heartfelt, honest, and relatable, whether you're in a relationship or not. I'm so grateful for Toni's openness and the chance to see her story through a new lens in this episode. Welcome back to the Show Me the Way podcast. Today's guest is someone I've had on my list since day one, someone who has truly supported most everything I've done, but especially this podcast, someone who knows me better than most, and someone that I've known for 40 plus years. Yep. It's my sister, Toni Thorne. We're only 3.5 years apart in age, and growing up, we spent a lot of time together. From shared friends to summer parks and rec to family trips to being sports teammates. There really isn't much we haven't experienced together, and I'm looking forward to allowing her to tell her story today. Toni's a mom of 2, my beautiful niece Marley, who's 17, and my sweet nephew Boston, who's 14, and an extremely hardworking physical therapist with plenty of business experience under her belt. She's bubbly and full of energy and always looks to bring joy to those around her. She does live in Ohio, so we don't see each other all the time, but over the past year, we've really made a conscious effort of talking more, and we finally tracked down a time to get her on the show. Like all of us, Toni has many directions she could take us during this episode, but I told her, as I tell all my guests, speak what's on your heart today. So with that, let me introduce you to my friend and sister, Toni. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Of
Super
course. So
excited.
excited. So excited. It's just been really fun to have such support from my family. So it'll be great to have you on. And I know I said a few things, but from your own words, if you want to share a little bit more with our listeners.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm just very proud of you for doing this and following your passion to try to help others. So I'm Toni. I'm Andrea's little sister. And when I say that I'm her little sister, I am her annoying little sister that grew up just driving her crazy. And like she said, we were really, really close growing up, spent a lot of time together, and it's just been really fun to kind of get older together. What you guys will hear with a lot of my story also has to do with both my sisters and I kind of getting off path for several years of our lives as we went through uh, our families and trauma and all of the things that have happened in our lives. We kind of grew apart a little bit more than we would like to, but we are, the 3 of us, very close now as we get older and really making a conscious effort to maintain our closeness. So as she said, I'm the youngest of 3 girls. We grew up in Michigan. When I graduated high school in 1999, my dad got transferred from our hometown of Woodhaven, Michigan to Lima, Ohio. And that was a very, very tough decision for me, but I decided to move with them. And also very, very, very difficult because I really never thought that I would end up staying in Ohio. Fast forward to where I am now. I've been through a lot in Ohio, mostly living here by myself. When I say by myself, I mean I am the only one of the five of us, the original five, that lives in this state. I am a physical therapist. I have a master's degree that I graduated from the University of Findlay. And I've taken a lot of different routes in therapy. I've owned a couple of businesses, one being a restaurant, which was kind of crazy. I've been through a lot of life-changing experiences throughout the last 20 plus years since graduating and moving to Ohio. And proud to say that through all of the difficult times I've been through, that I am loving the person I am now, and I'm just really enjoying living the life that I'm living right now.
Perfect. Good summary and like a good elevator speech. It's funny that you said you're the only one living in Ohio because I'm the only one living in Michigan now, which is kind of crazy. I thought we would all, like you said, it goes into what I'm trying to do with this podcast. I thought our future was all five of us staying in Michigan forever and just always being together and Sunday dinners and kids growing up together. I mean, that's what I envisioned when I was younger. And, things don't, as we say on this podcast, they don't always go the way we plan. Sometimes the more planning we do, the more it really steers away. So, you never really know what the future brings, and you can attest to that. So I just think that, I mean, every single person has a story that they could share, but I know that you've got quite a few things that you could go into. And I also know that you've gained a lot of perspective about it. So that's what we're trying to do with the Show Me the Way podcast is you thought you had a path, you thought you had a plan, and then for some reason or many reasons you had to pivot. And we all know it stems from my experience with my younger son, Tony's nephew, who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And again, in my mind, like you listeners have heard so many times, I thought I was going to have two little soccer players, and we were just going to have this very different life than what we have. And when he was diagnosed, when he was 5, it just everything went out the window. Like it just that time just snowballed. I just was like, what does the future look like? What's he going to be like at 12? What's he going to be like at 15? What's it going to be like when he's 20? And I just had to slow down and remind myself it's one day at a time. Actually, I was just listening to a church service online just before we popped on here, and that was the message that was going on today. So it was like a perfect message for me to do a podcast today, because he just said, like, you have to have faith and trust. You just never know. We can't tell the future. We're not in control. God is, and he's got this plan, and we're not always made aware of it. And I definitely was not made aware of what my future would hold when I was younger. So I started this podcast so that people could do the same thing, talk about their experiences. We've had everything from grief to child diagnoses to our personal diagnoses to different jobs. Actually, one of our guests, Lene Blaze, who I had on here very early on, she has a podcast too, Imagine Yourself, little plug for that. And she told me, come up with 52 names. If you want to do an episode every week for a year, come up with 52 names for the episodes. And when I thought of my sister, like I said, she was on the list right away. I said, from physical therapist to restaurant owner. What? So she could talk about her business experience. She could talk about family. I'm sure we'll come up with a lot of different things as we're talking. And I'm probably going to have to cut us off at some point so that I stick within the time limit. But yeah, I'm really glad that she was open to being on. I want to hear the story. I think my listeners can learn from Toni. And so now I am going to shut up. I'm going to let Toni take it over and just, like I told you, share whatever is on your heart.
Okay, so yeah, like a lot of people, a lot of different paths I could go with this, but because I've been through so much relationship wise and marriage wise, I would like to go that route. And the reason I want to go that route is not to do anything other than what is like my favorite saying nowadays, which, sorry about the swearing, is called own your shit, right? And so let's start from the beginning here. I have been married 3 times and divorced 3 times. The first marriage, I really don't even count as a marriage. We were in our early 20s. We had been dating a couple years. That was just the next step to go. We wanted to move out of our parents' houses. And so we got married young, or way too young to be married. And that marriage lasted about a year and was over. No children. Haven't heard from him or seen him since. That was a long time ago, 2005. Growing up, same as Andrea, we lived in a very, what you would call normal blue collar family. We had everything we needed. We were not rich by any means, but we always had everything we needed. Our parents worked. My mom stayed home when we were younger to take care of us. They were always married, and we just had this great little family life. We played sports. We did all the normal things that the average family did. And so growing up, you just kind of think that that's going to be your life. We went to a Catholic school. We grew up with, religious values. And as I got into high school and kind of started creating my own life, I was very much into my friends and playing sports all year round. And I just was always active in doing stuff. And you go through your high school life and you start to date and you start to think about your future and what you want to do. And I always knew I wanted to be a physical therapist from about the time I was a sophomore or junior, just the athletic side of me. That's just what I wanted to do. And I started dating a guy seriously. And that was it. That was who I was going to marry and who I was going to have the white picket fence with and who I was going to have a family with. And it didn't turn out that way, which ended up being fine. When I found out my senior year that my dad was being transferred to another state, to Lima, Ohio. And my sisters were older. One was married, getting ready to have a baby, and the other one was in college. Andrea was in college, dating Ryan seriously. She wanted to stay there. She was kind of getting set on her path. And I was a bratty little 17-year-old who was mad at the world for having to move with my parents. And I think that definitely changed me. At first, when I was younger, I didn't understand how it changed me. But the cool thing about getting old, like me, is like you learn how to own every decision that you've ever made, and you learn how to own all the consequences with it, and you learn how to forgive yourself. And that is what I'm very, very grateful for. So fast forward to a little over 3 years ago was my most recent divorce. And it took three very important things that I can think of in my life around that time as this was all unfolding, with the final straw being a probably 1 to 2 hour panic attack where I was lying on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably in the fetal position that almost led me to the emergency room, to realize there was something wrong with me and I needed to figure out why I kept spinning on this hamster wheel of life and doing the same things over and over and over again. The second thing that really hit me that I can remember sometime during all of this craziness was one of my dear friends, Diane. I went to her while my husband at the time and I were having problems. And she said to me, and I will never forget it, "Why do you continue to self-sabotage?" And it never occurred to me, because when you're going through life, and a lot of people can relate to this, when you're going through life and you feel like you're on that hamster wheel and you're just spinning and spinning and spinning and you're just going through life and you're raising kids and you're going to sports for them and you're trying to work and you're trying to be a mom and you're trying to be a wife and you're trying to do all the things, you don't think about the big picture until somebody says something like that to you. And so when she said that to me, I thought, she's right. This is not everybody else's fault. Sure, people have contributed to some things, but I needed to figure out deep inside I don't want to say what was wrong with me, what was going on in my world and in my brain and in my life to continue on this completely unhealthy path that I had been living on for 20 plus years. And the third thing that I can truly say that has happened to me in the last few years is that I've found God again. Just because you grow up going to Catholic school and Catholic church does not mean that you actually find or follow Jesus or God the way that you should. And so a good friend of mine, Dawn, asked me about a year ago to join her at one of the local non-denominational churches. And I hadn't been to church in probably 5+ years. And even then, I can honestly tell you that I went to Catholic church because that's what we always did growing up, but I didn't feel a connection with God ever, probably ever in my life. And so I started going to this local church, and I can tell you that I've been there every week since, and I look forward to it, and I get a message every week, and I've started to have a couple of my friends join us and we go to coffee afterwards. And it's such a great start to your week. But what I really want to talk about is exactly what I said. It is so important for all of us to, when bad things happen in our lives or major changes happen in our lives, you have to understand your part in it and you have to own your part in it. And when I say that, I'm specifically talking about divorces, obviously. Been through a few of them. So I've had to really dig deep to figure out, like, number one, why was I entering relationships with people that probably were not the best people to be entering relationships with? And then number two, why was I choosing to marry these people if they truly were not the person that I was meant to be with? And you often say, and it's hard for me to like actually believe this, but I do feel like with my relationships and with my marriages and all of my relationships with men, I truly feel like everything happens for a reason. That happened to me for a reason. So I do not really regret anything. And all of it has taught me a lesson. But let's focus on my, we're gonna call it my first marriage with the kid's dad. I met him sort of, I guess, in a rebellious state of life. I had just gone through a divorce, and in my family, my sisters were married, and they were kind of living that perfect little life there for a while, like the one we all thought we were supposed to be in: married, have kids, stay married, and that wasn't me. And so I had just gotten out of the first marriage that I was only in for a year, and it was hard because I was here by myself in Ohio, and in the perfect little family that we lived in, like you didn't get divorced. Like that was never really truly an option. But for me, I did. And it was a little bit hard for my family to take, my parents to take. And so I was going through that at a very young age. And I was working full time as a physical therapy assistant, finishing my college degree to be a physical therapist. And you start on that hamster wheel and you go through this divorce, and then you you figure out what to do next. And for me, it was always a hamster wheel. There were never any breaks. I jumped to dating the kid's dad right after that divorce. And looking back, like, he will always hold a special place in my heart. I did love him, but he probably wasn't the person that I look at myself now, seeing myself ending up with. We had a great time together. We made each other laugh. We decided to get married after maybe a year. And shortly after we got married, we had the two kids, and it was great. We were doing well. We had these beautiful kids who I wouldn't have given up for the world. So, like I said, things do happen for a reason. Had I not married him, I wouldn't have my sweet two kids. Marley is getting ready to graduate high school, go to college. She's doing great in Boston. He's a freshman in high school, and both of them are just so smart and such sweet kids. And that's all you can really ask for. As much as you've gone through in life, you hope that your kids come out better and aren't super negatively affected from some of the things that they've been through. And so things got, as with a lot of marriages, things got tough financially between him and I. And I started to feel that pretty heavily because I had a college degree and I had a good job and I made the money. And it got too much for me to bear. I mean, there were a lot of other factors, but it just got to be too stressful. And I became very resentful of the fact that I was working so hard, and I didn't have that same help or same look at life as he did. He would often make me feel like it was all about money, and it wasn't, because when you're growing up, you want to make money, you want to have nice things, and I did. I wanted to have a nice house, I wanted to have nice things because I had worked so hard to get my degree and I was working so hard to make the money. I wanted to be able to reap the benefits from it. He did not share that same type of outlook. And so there just became a lot of resentment. And I worked, I think the last year that we were together, I think I worked 8 different jobs. Now, when I say that, in the therapy and in the healthcare world, you can have a full-time job, but you can also have what we call PRN jobs, which is where you pick up other hours and other shifts from other places just to make a little bit of extra money. But because I was pretty much the only breadwinner, I worked a lot, and that just wore on us without anything more. Basically, we grew apart because of financial reasons and resentment. And so I can honestly tell you that looking at my life now, I went into every single relationship, and I really say like marriage, with in the back of my head thinking to myself, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. You can get divorced. And that is like something that is horrible to even say out loud, because I don't feel like you should ever go into a marriage thinking that. It's just not healthy.
It's almost having a, like a way out or a back door. It's like in business when you hear somebody saying like, "I'm all in for this business," and it's like, you're all in, but if your foot is still on the open back door, then are you really all in? Because at any minute you can walk out that door and then you're
Yeah,
not fully invested in the business anymore. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not terrible, but it is definitely not a positive way to go into a
right.
marriage. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's on me. Divorce is so common, and I've been around friends and family members and people, and we talk through it, and it's the easiest thing to do in life is just to blame the other person. And what I have found to be so healing and so great for my own perspective is to not do that. Like, it takes two to tango, and if I went into a marriage, both of those marriages with the two previous people, knowing that I had a way out and a plan B, knowing that I could always have a plan B, like that's not fair to me, but it's really not fair to them either. So I take ownership of that. And I've talked to you about it before, like with every decision that you make every single day, every single hour, there are consequences. Good or bad or indifferent. Like there are consequences to every decision that you make. And so when I made the decision to say yes to an engagement ring, that was my decision to start the process of marrying somebody. But in the back of my head, thinking, I can get out of it. That's not fair to anybody. And in that respect, because it was with him, it wasn't fair to my kids. Now, I think that we have done a great job. We got divorced when they were 5 and 2. So really, they don't know any different. Marley will tell you that she can remember a little bit, but what she'll tell you is she remembers fighting, which is not good for kids either. So, I feel like we've raised them the best we can separately. We try to get along, and for the most part, I think we do. There have been some times that I'm not proud of, that both sides have talked bad about the other to the children, and that's something that I've strived now to try not to do, because it's not good for anybody. So when that marriage ended and the kids were so young, again, you have to remember I lived in this state by myself, and that means that I have nobody to help me, right? So I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I don't have a plan. Financially, I'm stable. I have the house, and all of a sudden the process starts, and I start thinking, okay, I got to have a plan. I got to have a plan. And so again, you're going to hear some things that maybe you do not like about me, but I am so into owning everything that my life is like an open book. And so if you want to know something about me, I'm not going to deny it, because the truth will set you free. And that's such a cliche, but it's so true. When you can own your shit, and when you can tell the truth about it, and you can move forward from it and become a better person, the weight off your shoulders that you feel is amazing. So, as that marriage was getting rocky and I knew I did not want to stay married to him, I sought attention from Rob, who was eventually my next husband. We started having kind of a thing for a few months before I started the separation process with the kid's dad, and that was not right. Again, consequences from decisions. But I had started down this path, and looking back, again, not fair to anybody, but I really truly felt like I needed somebody to help me with my two kids. And along came this guy that was 17 years older than me, paying attention to me. And it just seemed like a good fit at the time. And he was we went through the process of the divorce. It was very hard, as any divorce is. And when you have a 5 and a 2 year old, you get on that hamster wheel and you just keep going because you got to go. You got to keep going. You have children you got to take care of. And when we went through the whole process, I learned something that I didn't know at the time. Now I'm an expert at it, but I learned that it wasn't as easy as just breaking ties. I was obligated to pay child support because of the way our finances were. And even though we split them equally, I had a huge, huge bill to pay every month of child support. And so I put my head down, kept working, started, working more jobs and just kept work has always been such a big part of my life. But when you get put in a position, you focus on work. And I'm thankful that I've had very good jobs. But with that, again, consequences. So I was always working, and therefore my kids were always at the babysitter while I was at work. And even though we had great daycare and we had great babysitters, like a lot of people do, I missed out. I missed out on a lot of things because I had all of these financial obligations. And I started thinking that in order to really actually live life, I needed to be with a man again because financially I needed help. And with a 5 year old and a 2 year old, I needed help. And it worked for a short period of time, right? So I met Rob and we hit it off and we moved in together pretty quickly within a year of my previous divorce. And he wined me and dined me and made me feel like I was a queen. Treated me like a queen. I can remember my the first Christmas we were together. He got me like he just spoiled me with gifts and he got me, oh gosh, an iPad, a laptop, about 10 or 12 new dresses, right? Just like all of these things. And I was like, wow, like this is great because he was showing me what I didn't have before, right? Which was like financial support. So he was this great guy that was now contributing financially and the kids really liked him. Not maybe not at first, but after a little while, they really liked him. And so within a couple of years of dating him, we were engaged and got married shortly after that. And again, I know I mentioned quickly, but he was 17 years older than me. And so after I started my healing and doing my therapy and all of that stuff, I realized he was more of like a father figure, I think, than anything else for me. And just like with every new relationship, things are great at first. It's all new and there's all these things. And he was taking me on vacations and we were we were just having a great time. The kids, I'm never going to take away the fact that he was great to those kids when they were younger, especially Boston. They had a fantastic bond. He taught Boston how to ride a bike. He taught Boston how to swim. He just did all these great things. He would take Marley to haunted houses with her friends, take them sledding in the snow, like just all these great things. And then all of a sudden, like the real him started to come out after a few years of being married. When I say that, like it really was evident to me. I don't know if I looked through rose-colored glasses for the first few years or I was in such survival mode that I didn't realize it, but he got a little scary. The people that were closest to me, our friends, they saw it. And they knew and I could feel myself, and Andrea will tell you this too because she knows me almost better than anybody, if not better than anybody. Uh, I felt myself moving into this shell of a person, and I stopped being my normal social self. I really started drinking a lot. I don't know that I would ever categorize myself as an alcoholic. Because I can have a drink now and stop and be fine. I don't need it all the time. And I didn't have to like completely cut it off and not be able to go back to it. But Having said that, I was using alcohol to live my life. And unfortunately, I was having a couple very strong drinks every single night. And I try not to say I have regrets because I don't, because I've learned from everything. And the only thing you can do is move forward and fix how you're moving forward. And I've had some tough conversations with my kids about being drunk around them a lot. And when you hear from your kids that, yeah, like, you're right, mom, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. But what's important is that you can change the way that you are. People often say people don't change, and I completely disagree with that. Now, I want to fast forward a little bit to how I figured out how to heal from all of this. So, like I said, I really started to kind of, how have I been married 3 times, divorced 3 times? What is wrong with me? What happened in my life, and what am I doing? And how am I going to stop this from happening again? Because I do want to either be married or be with somebody for the rest of my life comfortably. And I don't want to continue this lifestyle. And so I started therapy with a local girl here, and she was amazing. I don't think people really are open to therapy a lot. And I really wasn't for years because I thought I'm smart, I can handle everything, and I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. But being open to going through therapy and finding the right therapist, that's the really important part. Finding the right therapist that's going to do the right things, it saved my life. And I'll say that I have a wonderful family. But when you get it to a certain point in your life, you're almost embarrassed to talk to people that you know because of everything you've done and all the hard and horrible things that I had done. I was embarrassed to talk to people that I knew and loved because I didn't want to admit it to them. I didn't want to take ownership of what I had done in all of these situations. And so I went to therapy, and I probably went to her maybe 9 or 10 times at the most. She asked some very, very difficult questions that I didn't want to answer, but I went in it thinking, I'm doing this to make myself better so that I don't continue on this path anymore, and so that I can be a better parent to my children, a better person in life, a better sister, a better daughter, a better friend, and eventually somebody that a man can be with without thinking that this person's going to just leave them, right? Because that's what I've always done. I just leave. I find something wrong and I leave because at the end of the day, that was not like the person that I should have been with anyway.
Mm.
Because you should be able to have tough conversations and have tough things in life that come up and be able to have a partner and deal with all of those things together instead of blaming each other and just leaving. So I wanted to be off of that path. And so I went into this therapy thinking, I'm doing this with an open mind because I want to get better. So I went, and the first couple of sessions were just kind of her questioning me and giving me some tools to work on because I was having a hard time with anxiety. And some of the things that I dealt with in this last marriage were very, very difficult mentally. When you are living with somebody such as the person I was married to, I lived in a constant state of survival mode. I walked on eggshells. I was fearful that my kids were going to do something or I was going to do something to upset him. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but the people that are closest to me know the struggles that I went through. And I think that going through the therapy made me realize why someone like me would put themselves in relationships like that and put up with it, because everybody wants to say, oh, well, you should have never been with them, or, I can't believe you were with them, or why did you stay with all, there are always those questions. So I went through therapy, and about the third or fourth session, she started this interesting technique on me. What she brought up was something that I had repressed in, and I never even thought about it for 25 plus years. And it's something when I went through by myself in high school and never told anybody about it. You know about it because I've talked to you about it. It was just something that happened that I dealt with. And I think that that changed my perspective on how relationships should work. But I had no idea at the time that it did. I realized 25 years later, after going through therapy, that that could very well have been what shaped my perspective on relationships and how they would work. It made me this person that did not believe in, let's just face it, monogamous relationships. Well, that's just the person I am, and that's how relationships are going to be for me. And so I started this horrible path of relationships, and that white picket fence, perfect little family that I had created in my mind stopped. The sad part is, I didn't realize it till 25 years later. And so after 25 years of being in unhealthy relationships and finally like stopping and taking a breath and laying in a fetal position, sobbing your eyes out, not even knowing how you're going to get up, and making yourself realize that you need to fix yourself, that was the only thing that saved me. I don't really know that I can say that I have one pivotal thing in life that my path changed, but all I can say is after going through the lowest point in my life and being forced to be alone and sit in my thoughts, and I mean, for about a year, I healed. And I healed with the help of therapy. I healed with the help of church. I healed with the help of my family. I healed with the help of my closest friends. And I now feel like I am in a healthy relationship. It's beyond me that I wasted 25 plus years not being in healthy relationships when I realized how great life is when you're in one. So that's the story, sort of in a nutshell. I just love owning everything about it because it is so freeing to put the pieces together of everything that's happened in your life and like coming to terms with the fact that I may be 43 years old, but I have such a great life ahead of me. And I am such a better person and such a better parent and such a better sister and such a better daughter and such a better partner for all the people in my life. And I love that people can see that in me now. I wasted a lot of years being in unhealthy relationships and I'll never do it again.
Well, I have some thoughts, so I'm going to jump in. I feel like while I was listening to you, it's almost nice to do it from a podcast host perspective instead of a sister perspective, because I think always, especially with my little sister, I always get into protective mode or like, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. Or like, I'll do that with our other sister too. I get really upset when my sisters are upset and when they're going through something. And so listening to you, oh, it's my fault, or I did this, I did that. On one hand, I get upset because I'm like, stop, it's not all your fault. And it reminds me of I was at my older son's soccer game last night and they lost. And there's this kid that I don't know extremely well, but gotten to know over the last year who works really hard. And I just, from the few times I've been around him, it seems like he's got such a great heart and he seems like such a respectful, good kid. And he played defense and he made a couple mistakes yesterday. He's also dealing with some injury. So there's a lot going on in his head. And after the game, he was kind of by himself. His parents weren't there. He was just by himself. He was feeling really low. And he just looked like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. And I felt so bad. And I just wanted to say, it's not all your fault. Give yourself some grace. So as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking the same thing. But on the other hand, you have to respect when someone understands that they could have improved. They could have been better. There's some mistakes that he made that he could do better with. And then listening to you, like, yeah, over the years, we've all blamed the other person with you. And to hear you say so powerfully, no, it's time that I try to make myself understand the mistakes I've made so that I can make improvements. I just think that is so respectable and so important to hear. And I also want to say that I know you are not the only person in the world that's been married and divorced 3 times or multiple times. So you're definitely not alone. And there's a lot of people that could relate to things that you've said, I'm sure. There's many reasons why we seek other people. We're going through a difficult time. Somebody gives us attention. It's amazing what that does. We have little kids. Somebody helps us take care of the kids. We see the gifts that they give us as love. It's that's what I always want to remind you, that it's not just you doing something like that. But I like where you're going and how you're speaking through it, because I've heard you say bits and pieces of a lot of this, but just to say that you are on this improvement path and you don't want to have regrets, and how happy you are in your current relationship. I think a lot of people will relate to that. But I also want to say that you mentioned your relationship with God and how that's growing. It's great to hear that. I have the same story that I am trying to build upon my relationship as well. And the big thing that I always say is that he's got a plan. God has a plan. He's in control. We're not in control. And I think everything you said kind of relates to that, that we don't know what the future holds, which is number one reason I'm doing this podcast, to remind everybody that we don't. And for those that do believe and follow the same path that my sister and I are both talking about, that it is almost freeing to know that we're not in this alone, that God has a plan and we just have to trust. And again, that's a big part of what I listened to this morning. So it must be God reminding me constantly to keep saying this and to keep knowing this, that he's in control.
Yep.
I also wrote down partnership. I think that is something that is huge. And I don't know, when you're young, that you understand how important that is. And as you get older, whether you're married or not, I think it's critical to try to find that. When you're in a marriage and you feel alone, that's when that might be a red flag. Because not that I'm an expert at all, but I have been married for 24 years. And that's the biggest thing I'll say. Like, above all else, having a partner is the most important thing. I think, to me at least, I think my husband agrees, but to have a partner means so much. And it's the number one thing I would want in a relationship. So it's great that you recognize that, because you certainly didn't have that in some of your relationships, somebody that you felt was your partner.
Right. You know, both of the marriages that it was in before, I never felt like, and this is going to sound, nowadays you can't talk like this, but we grew up in a very similar family as your family. The man is kind of the breadwinner, the woman is kind of the homemaker, takes care of the kids, cleans, cooks, all of those things. That's what I always wanted. That's what I always pictured. I'm very proud of the fact that I went to college and that I have a degree in physical therapy and I could always have that job. And I would never want to not have that. But I always envied going through these last two marriages. Like, I always envied that type of a family. Like, I never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't think I could have done that. Like, I always wanted to be able to come home and make dinners. But with my first marriage, I was forced to be the breadwinner. And I was tired when I came home, and I didn't want to do all of those motherly things that I wished I was able to do. And then when I was married to Rob, because he was so domineering and controlling, I felt like I couldn't be that person. So it was different issues. When I would try to cook meals in the kitchen, which I love to do, he'd come in there and tell me what I was doing wrong or what he would do differently. And so it wasn't fun for me. And there were a lot of other like things, but I got gypped out of being the wife and mom that I always pictured myself to be and what they always wanted to be. And, there are a lot of things that I feel bad about with my kids because I wasn't that type of a person. But again, you can sit and wallow in all of that for the rest of your life, or you can try to be better now. And the my kids are older, so they don't need me as much. When I split up with Rob, like, there was a small part of me that wanted to try to make the original family work again. But that was a few years ago. Kids' dad and I tried to make all that work again for a few months, and it did not work. And so after that, we had been splitting the kids equally. And Marley was going to school in Sydney, which is where I live. Boston was going to school in Bellefontaine, which is where their dad lives. After we tried to do that and it didn't work, then our family went through another change and we split up again. And so Marley lives with me full time now, and Boston lives with his dad full time now. And so again, we talk about consequences to every decision that's made. That was a decision that probably shouldn't have been made, but it was made during a time of crisis and what I felt like was right at the time. And as a result, I've kind of lost my son. Seeing your son one time a week for about an hour sucks. But you can only do, you have to live with the consequences of your decisions. And that is why it's important to own them, face up to them, and try to figure out the best way to move forward. So I am able to be that person. I've been dating the same guy for the last couple of years, and he loves that I cook for him, and he loves that I want to, take care of his house. And he owns a business and is working, a lot. And he's we don't live together, but he allows me to have that feminine side, which I have not had, I don't think, ever in my life. So as hard as some of the things have been that have come from all of these decisions and all of these issues that I've gone through in my life, there are so many great things that are in my life, but there will always be constant reminders of some of the bad things that have happened and some of the bad decisions that I've made. And, I tell you all the time, like you just said, I live day to day. I have no idea what is going to happen tomorrow or the next day or the next day, but I live my life so happy and just try to make the best of every single day, even though I have a lot of stuff that I deal with. I'm just grateful to have another chance, I guess, at life, because that's the thing. We all make mistakes. We all have consequences. We all go through hardships, but life keeps going. And you can either focus on all that and you can blame stuff and other people, or you can take ownership of it and you can figure out how to try to live the rest of your life the best that you can. And I'm finally there. Even though I live day to day, I live a very happy day to day. And I'm just grateful for it. And I thank God every single day of my life for putting the people in my life at the right time when I needed them the most. And not to be all sappy, but you and Nikki, I mean, I don't know what I would have done without you guys in the last few years. I can say that very strongly. And same thing with my friends, my closest friends that live around here. We call each other the island of the misfit toys because we are of all ages and all backgrounds, but we fit together and we've gone through a lot of things together. And so yeah.
Well, I was going to say that one of the things that I say almost every day in my prayer is thank you to God for never giving up on me. So he doesn't give up on us no matter
Right.
what we do or the decision we made. As long as we accept him and as long as we ask for forgiveness and continue to build a relationship, then that's the best thing that we can do. So he's never going to give up on us no matter what. And yeah, today's message was just so timely. He was talking about the GPS we use to get places, which I use all the time. It's made me kind of dumb because I won't even drive to places around my city without the GPS sometimes. And he was just saying how if you make a wrong turn or if you realize that, oops, it said that my turn was 200 feet away and I just kept driving, there's always a word that the GPS will give you, and it's rerouting. Rerouting. So it's never, I'm giving up on you, you're stupid, I'm done with you. It's we're just rerouting. So I do strongly believe that that's what God does with us every step of the way. So I appreciate everything that you have said so much and how much ownership you've taken. I've been able to see it, just how much you've grown over the last year. I really hope that the relationship you're in continues to be what you want it to be for sure. But it's a personal thing and it's something that you're going through and it's something you're working on. And I just think that's really, really great to hear. But, getting back to your son, not living with you. Things can always change. Things can always turn around. Just when you think your child doesn't need you anymore, he surprises you. My son did that yesterday. He spent extra time with us after the game, and it just really warmed my heart. I think I got 3 hugs. He's away at school, as many of you know, and I got 3 hugs yesterday. So it was a really big day, and I had just finished telling a bunch of people the night before how my son has completely moved on. He's 19, he doesn't need me anymore. And then we had a really great time yesterday. So there is always hope for the future. There is always things that can change. The way things are right now are not ideal, but it doesn't mean that you can't build upon it or create something different soon. Life goes really fast, as you know. So before you know it, he'll be in a different situation, in a different state of mind. He's going to continue to mature and have different wants and needs. And as long as you don't give up on him, like God doesn't give up on us, I think you just never know what the future brings with that. I think when we were preparing for this, I told you I'd have a bunch of questions. I just really let you tell the story. I think too, the reason I don't write a script is because I just never know where we're going to go. So I appreciate you sharing that story. I think you've given us so many good tidbits for people that might be going through something similar or might be afraid. But I would like to say one more thing, and then I want to give you an opportunity if you have anything else you'd want to share with listeners, any more of your perspective. As I've been saying with season 2 of Show Me the Way podcast, I'm really trying to encourage people to talk about the village and the people that are with them and the people that support them and how important it is and how we are not meant to do any of this alone. Some people are big extroverts like me and believe that they need 25 different groups of people to get through life. Some people need 1 or 2 really close friends or misfits together to get through what they need to get through. But I'm really glad that you highlighted the importance of that. And just a reminder from a personal sister perspective, it's very important to talk. It's very important to seek people out. And when you close up, when you shut down, when you don't do that, that's when you can have bigger problems. So you might not always be really comfortable talking, but I'm glad you shared your story for everybody today. And I just want to continue to encourage you to do that, to go after the people that love you and want to be there and rely on your village, because we would be lost without people in our lives. So I'm glad that you highlighted that. Even if I don't tell my guests that's a focus for season 2, they always end up talking about it. So I'm glad that you said that. But yeah, we could keep talking. Obviously, we're sisters. We could talk forever. But I do want to be respectful of time and stay to the time that I like to put forward with this podcast. But I do like to give my guests sometimes the extra opportunity to take the mic back if there's any other perspective or thoughts you would like to share with our listeners.
Um, yeah, I just want people to be mindful that before you go 25 years without like figuring out how to make yourself better, if you feel like something is not right in your life or something is not settling right or you're going through relationships or maybe mental or physical abuse or you just don't feel right in your gut about something, maybe it's not your family that you want to talk to, but find somebody, whether it's a therapist, a friend, person you go to church with, somebody you don't even know. Find someone to talk to about it because you don't want to be spinning on that hamster wheel your whole life, not knowing how to live a better life. When you finally get to whether, my focus has been on relationships this most of this conversation, but whatever it is in your life, you want to be the best at it that you can possibly be. And we all want to live lives that are happy and we all want to be happy. And so if something is not feeling right to you or you're using alcohol to get through life, there's a big difference between drinking to get away from your problems and drinking because you're happy and you're just wanting to have a drink. And if you feel like you're using alcohol or drugs or anything like that to run away from problems, there's something wrong in your life and you got to figure it out. And so all I would suggest is if you're going through something in your life and you feel like it's not right, find someone to help you through it because staying in that type of a relationship or a marriage or a job or whatever it is in your life, staying is not going to make it any better. You have to heal, you have to deal with it, you have to own it, and you have to figure out how to move forward from it.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think there's one listener that can't take something from today, even if the person's never been in a relationship or never been married, I still believe that they would take something from what you said and be able to learn from it. And again, the importance of village, community, the people that are there for you, the importance of talking about it instead of keeping things to yourself or trying to figure it all out on your own. When you think something's wrong in your life, it's okay to lean on others. It's also really, really great to lean on your faith because you always have that. If that's something that's a big part of your life, you always have that to turn to. Well, thank you so much for being on today's show and for sharing the story. Again, I had you on my list since day one just because I knew you would support and you would be on if I asked you to. But also, I knew that you had a lot of stories to share. So, appreciate that so much. And I'm really glad that you took the time out this morning. You are also, my sister's also extremely busy with work and with her family and also really into pickleball. So it's hard to get her on the schedule, but I'm so glad we were able to make it work.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Thank you for joining me for the Show Me the Way podcast. I truly appreciate you tuning in to today's episode about overcoming adversity and finding your path. I hope it brought you new insights, empowered you with perspective, and inspired you to find joy in your journey. If this episode touched your heart, don't forget to leave a quick review as it will help us reach and motivate more people. Until next time, keep seeking the light and showing the way.